Officer Derek Harlan had his hand on his gun before the man even stepped out of the car. In the quiet cul-de-sac of an affluent neighborhood, he saw a black man in a luxury SUV and assumed he was a criminal. He had no idea he was staring at one of the FBI's most decorated agents, Special Agent Kade Blake. What happened in those moments was not just a misunderstanding. It was a brutal collision of ego and justice that ended with a twist so shocking it brought an entire police department to its knees. Watch closely. The hunter was about to become the hunted. The engine of the black Chevy Tahoe ticked softly as it cooled, the only sound in the otherwise silent street. It was an affluent neighborhood of manicured lawns, cut with geometric precision, American flags drooping lazily on porch poles, and the kind of silence that cost a fortune to buy. Inside the Tahoe, Kade Blake sat with the stillness of a predator, waiting for the wind to change. He adjusted the cuffs of his suit jacket, Italian wool tailored to hide the Sig Sauer P226 holstered under his left arm. On the passenger seat lay a folder stamped "Confidential," a lukewarm cup of coffee, and a pair of high-powered binoculars. Kade, known as Jay to the very few friends he kept outside the bureau, checked his watch. He was not here for a drug bust or a bank robbery. He was here for something much harder to prove: white-collar corruption involving city zoning permits, organized crime, and money laundering. The target was a man named Victor Slade, a city councilman living 3 doors down. Kade was a seasoned man with skin the color of deep mahogany and a shaved head that gleamed slightly in the filtered sunlight. He had spent many years in the FBI, moving from the chaotic gang task forces of Chicago to the surgically precise white-collar crimes division. He knew how to wait. Patience was the primary weapon of his trade. He took a sip of the coffee, grimacing at the temperature, and scanned the street. A delivery truck rumbled past. A woman walked a golden retriever. Normal, boring, perfect. Then the rearview mirror caught a flash of white and blue. A police cruiser turned slowly onto the street. It did not pass. It crawled. The shark-like nose of the Ford Explorer dipped as the brakes engaged, coming to a halt 2 car lengths behind Kade's Tahoe. Kade let out a long, weary sigh through his nose. He knew the drill. He was a black man sitting in a tinted SUV in a neighborhood where the demographics skewed heavily white. He had hoped the generic government plates would be enough of a "Do Not Disturb" sign, but apparently today was going to be complicated. He watched the mirrors. The cruiser's doors opened. 2 officers. The driver was a wall of a man, Officer Derek Harlan. Kade did not know his name yet, but he knew the type. Harlan walked with his chest puffed out, thumbs hooked near his belt, his sunglasses reflecting the suburban glare. He was an experienced officer, heavy-set but muscular, with a thick mustache. His body language screamed territorial aggression. The passenger was younger, female, Officer Riley Beckett. She looked barely out of the academy, her uniform slightly too big, her hand resting nervously near her radio. She trailed Harlan by a few steps, glancing around the street as if expecting an ambush. "Here we go," Kade whispered to himself. He kept his hands visible, resting them at the 10 and 2 positions on the steering wheel. He lowered the driver's side window as Harlan approached. Harlan did not say hello. He did not ask how Kade was doing. He leaned down, placing a meaty hand on the roof of the Tahoe, and peered inside through his aviators. "License and registration," Harlan barked. No preamble. Kade turned his head slowly. He kept his voice calm. the practiced baritone of a man who had negotiated with hostage takers. "Good afternoon, officer. Is there a problem?" "I said license and registration," Harlan repeated, louder this time. He leaned in further, sniffing the air inside the car like a bloodhound. "You do not live here." "I am working," Kade said calmly. "I am a federal agent. My credentials in my inside jacket pocket. I am going to reach for them now." This was the protocol. Declare, describe, move. "Do not move a muscle." Harlan's hand dropped to his holster. The snap of the retention strap being thumbed off echoed in the quiet street. "I did not ask for a life story. I asked for ID." "Get out of the car." Kade frowned. This was escalating faster than usual. "Officer, I am identifying myself as a special agent with the FBI. I am on an active surveillance operation. If I get out of the car, I break cover." "Break cover?" Harlan laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "You are sitting in a suspicious vehicle in a high-priority neighborhood, idling. We have had reports of break-ins. You fit the description." Kade knew for a fact there had been no break-ins in this zip code for some time. He checked the crime stats daily. "Which description is that, officer?" "The one that says blackmail in a car." Harlan's face reddened instantly. The vein in his neck bulged. He ripped the door handle. It was locked. "Open this door or I break the window," Harlan shouted. Officer Beckett stepped forward tentatively. "Derek, maybe let him show the ID first. He said he is a Fed." "Shut up, Beckett," Harlan snapped without looking at her. "He's stalling. He is probably ditching dope or a piece right now. Open the door." Kade calculated his options. If he refused, Harlan would smash the window, drag him out, and the scene would be even bigger. If he complied, he lost control of the situation. But he saved the taxpayer the cost of a window, and potentially saved his own life if Harlan was as trigger-happy as he looked. "Okay," Kade said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming cold and hard. "I am unlocking the door. I am stepping out, but you need to listen very carefully to what I tell you next. Get out." Kade unlocked the door. Before he could even swing it fully open, Harlan grabbed him by the lapel of his expensive suit and yanked. Kade stumbled as he was hauled onto the asphalt. He was 6'2" and in peak physical condition, a former college linebacker, but he allowed himself to be moved. Resistance now would give Harlan the excuse he was desperately fishing for. "Hands on the hood now." Harlan slammed Kade against the hot metal of the Tahoe. The impact rattled Kade's teeth, but he did not grunt. He spread his legs and placed his hands on the roof, fingers spread. "My badge," Kade said clearly, speaking loud enough for the body camera on Harlan's chest to pick it up perfectly, "is in my left interior pocket. My service weapon is holstered under my left arm. Do not reach for it unless you want a federal inquiry on your desk by morning." "Gun!" Harlan shouted, ignoring the context. "He has a gun. Beckett, cover me." Beckett drew her weapon but pointed it low, looking terrified. "Derek, he told you he has it. He is complying. He is armed and dangerous." Harlan jammed his knee into the back of Kade's knee, forcing him to buckle. Kade went down to one knee, grit biting into his suit trousers. Harlan grabbed Kade's right wrist and twisted it behind his back, forcing it up near his shoulder blades. The pain was sharp, rotator cuff tearing sharp. Kade gritted his teeth, his eyes narrowing. "Officer Harlan," Kade said, reading the nameplate now that it was inches from his face. "You are making a mistake that you cannot fix. Check my pocket. Look at the credentials." I am checking for my safety first. Harlan patted Kade down aggressively. He found the gun. He ripped the Sig Sauer from the holster and skidded it across the pavement, scratching the finish of a government-issued firearm. That is federal property, Kade stated. His voice was becoming robotic, detached. He was memorizing every second. Excessive force, failure to verify credentials, unlawful detention. Harlan finally reached into the jacket pocket. He pulled out the leather wallet. He flipped it open. The gold shield of the FBI gleamed in the sunlight. The photo ID next to it clearly read, Kade Blake, Special Agent. Harlan stared at it. For a second, just one heartbeat, the silence returned. Beckett leaned in. Seeing the badge, her eyes went wide. "Derek," she whispered, "that is real. That is a real badge. Let him up." But Harlan's ego was a runaway train. He had already committed. He had shouted. He had used force. And neighbors were starting to come out onto their porches. Mrs. Kensington, from number 42, was holding her iPhone up. A landscaping crew across the street had stopped their mowers and were watching. If Harlan backed down now, he looked like a fool. If he doubled down, he could claim the badge looked fake. He could claim Kade was resisting. In Harlan's mind, the truth was malleable. Harlan snapped the wallet shut and shoved it into his own pocket. "Fake," Harlan announced, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "Looks like a forgery to me. You get these online?" Kade's blood ran cold. This was not just incompetence anymore. This was malice. "You know, that is legitimate. Call your supervisor. Call the field office. The number is on the back of the card. I'm taking you in for impersonating a police officer, resisting arrest, and possession of an illegal firearm," Harlan said, pulling his handcuffs. Click, click. The steel bit into Kade's wrists. "You are under arrest," Harlan sneered, leaning close to Kade's ear. "You think a suit and a fake badge make you untouchable? Not in my town, boy." The racial undertone was not subtle. It was a sledgehammer. Kade stood up as Harlan hauled him by the chain of the cuffs. He turned to face the officer. Kade did not look defeated. He looked like a judge passing a sentence. "Officer Beckett," Kade said, locking eyes with the rookie, "you are witnessing a felony. Deprivation of rights under color of law. Title 18, United States Code, Section 242. If you do not intervene, you are an accessory." Beckett flinched. She looked at Harlan. "Derek, we should run the badge number. Dispatch can verify it in seconds." "I said get him in the car." Harlan shoved Kade toward the cruiser. Kade did not fight. He walked with dignity, despite his hands being bound behind him. He sat in the back of the cramped plastic seat of the police interceptor. The smell of stale vomit and disinfectant filled his nose. Harlan slammed the door. Inside the car, trapped behind the cage, Kade took a deep breath. He closed his eyes. He was not praying. He was counting. He knew something the officer did not. Kade was not just on a stakeout. He was part of a coordinated takedown. His partner, Special Agent Quentin Riley, was 2 streets over in a surveillance van, and Kade was wearing a wire. Everything that had just happened, the racial slur, the dismissal of the badge, the refusal to check credentials, had been recorded and transmitted live to the Chicago field office. Kade looked at the digital clock on the dashboard of the cruiser. "Quentin," Kade whispered, knowing the microphone taped to his chest beneath his shirt would pick it up. "Come get me and bring the cavalry." Outside, Harlan was strutting. He was playing to the audience. He walked over to Mrs. Kensington, who was still filming. Nothing to see here, folks. Just taking some trash off the street, Harlan boomed. He picked up Kade's gun from the pavement, handling it carelessly by the trigger guard, a massive safety violation, and tossed it onto the passenger seat of his cruiser. He turned to Beckett. You drive. I will write up the booking sheet on the way. We are going to charge him with everything we can think of. Disorderly conduct, assault on an officer. He did not touch you, Derek, Beckett said, her voice trembling. He thought about it, Harlan grunted. Get in. They got into the car. Harlan turned around, grinning at Kade through the cage. Comfortable back there. Do not worry. The county lockup is worse. Kade looked at him, his face completely expressionless. You have about 3 minutes left, officer. 3 minutes until what? Harlan laughed. Until your life ends, Kade said softly. Not your heartbeat, but your life as you know it. Harlan rolled his eyes. Yeah. Tell it to the judge. He slapped the dashboard. Let us go, Beckett. Beckett put the car in drive. She released the brake, but before she could touch the gas, a siren chirped. Not the wail of a distant ambulance, the sharp, aggressive whoop-whoop of a federal siren. A massive black SUV, identical to Kade's, but with grille lights flashing red and blue, squealed around the corner, blocking the street in front of them. Then another came from behind, boxing them in. Then a third. Tires screeched, doors flew open. Men in tactical gear with FBI emblazoned in bright yellow on their backs poured out. They did not look like local cops. They moved with the terrifying speed of a SWAT team. Harlan froze. His hand went to his door handle, but he did not open it. What is this? He stammered. Who are these guys? Kade leaned forward against the cage. A small, cold smile finally touched his lips. That, Kade said, is the twist. The silence of the street, previously disturbed only by the chirping of birds and the drone of lawnmowers, was now annihilated by a cacophony of shouting, slamming doors, and the crackle of high-frequency radios. Officer Derek Harlan sat frozen in the driver's seat of his cruiser. His brain, usually quick to categorize the world into threat or civilian, was misfiring. The visual data in front of him did not make sense. Police officers were the predators in this ecosystem, not the prey. Yet 3 black Chevrolet Suburbans had just executed a hard box maneuver on his vehicle, a tactic usually reserved for terrorists or cartel leaders. Derek! Officer Riley Beckett's voice was high, bordering on hysterical. Derek, put the car in park. Put your hands up. Shut up, Harlan hissed, though his voice lacked its usual venom. It was thin, greedy. It is a mistake or a prank. Probably a movie shoot. They did not have permits for this. He was clinging to delusion like a life raft. Driver of the police cruiser, a voice boomed over a PA system from the lead SUV. It was not a request. It was the voice of God. Turn off the engine. Throw the keys out the window. Keep your hands visible. Inside the cage of the cruiser, Kade Blake watched the back of Harlan's neck. He saw the sweat beginning to bead at the hairline. I would listen to them, Derek, Kade said calmly. That is Special Agent Quentin Riley on the horn. He has a very low tolerance for nonsense. Harlan whipped his head around, his face purple. You set me up. You set this up. I tried to show you my ID, Kade replied. You chose not to look. Driver now. The PA system boomed again. Harlan's hands shook as he reached for the ignition. He turned the key. The engine died. He dropped the keys out of the window. They clattered onto the asphalt. Exit the vehicle. Walk backwards toward the sound of my voice. Hands on your head. Harlan opened the door. The heat of the afternoon hit him, but he felt cold. He stepped out. He looked to his left and right. There were at least 12 agents. They wore heavy plate carriers over navy blue fatigues. They held M4 carbines at the low ready, barrels pointed at the ground, but ready to snap up in a millisecond. These were not beat cops. These were the FBI's regional SWAT team, the heavy hitters called in for high-risk warrants. Harlan interlaced his fingers behind his head. He started walking backward. "Officer Harlan," a voice spoke from behind him, not over a PA this time, but close. "Stop! Get on your knees!" "I am a police officer," Harlan shouted, finding a scrap of his old bravado. "You cannot do this. I have a badge. Get on your knees or you will be put on your knees." Harlan crumbled. He sank to the asphalt, the gravel biting into his uniform pants. 2 agents moved in. They did not treat him with the professional courtesy usually extended between law enforcement agencies. They treated him like a hostile combatant. One agent grabbed Harlan's left wrist, the other his right. They wrenched his arms down and slapped a pair of flex cuffs, heavy-duty plastic zip ties, onto his wrists. "Hey, that is too tight," Harlan yelped. "Quiet," the agent on his right growled. Meanwhile, a different team moved to the passenger side. Officer Beckett was already out of the car, crying, her hands high in the air. "I did not do anything," she sobbed. I told him to check the badge." "Secure her," a tall agent commanded. "Check her weapon. Is it clear?" "Clear!" another agent shouted, removing Beckett's sidearm. They did not cuff her, but they escorted her away from Harlan, separating the witnesses. Then the focus shifted to the back seat of the cruiser. The tall agent, Quentin Riley, approached the rear door. He had red hair that was graying at the temples, and a face that looked like it had been carved out of granite. He did not look happy. He looked apocalyptic. He opened the rear door. "You okay, Jay?" Riley asked, his voice instantly shifting from command shout to a concerned friend. Kade shifted in the plastic seat, offering his back to the door so Riley could reach the handcuffs. "Shoulders a bit tight. He wrenched it pretty good, but I am fine. Key." Riley barked over his shoulder. An agent handed him a universal handcuff key. Riley unlocked the cuffs. Kade stepped out of the cruiser. He rubbed his wrists, where red welts were already forming. He adjusted his suit jacket, brushed a speck of dust off his lapel, and took a deep breath of fresh air. He walked over to where Harlan was kneeling. The scene was a tableau of humiliation. Harlan, the king of his little patrol beat, was now kneeling before the man he had called boy minutes ago. Kade looked down at him. He did not gloat. He did not smile. He just looked disappointed. "Officer Harlan," Kade said, "I am Special Agent Kade Blake. I am the lead investigator on the RICO case targeting the corrupt zoning operations in this district. You have just compromised a long-running federal investigation." Harlan looked up, blinking against the sun. "RICO? What are you talking about? You were just sitting there." "I was waiting for a courier to deliver a package of cash to Councilman Slade," Kade said, pointing to the house 3 doors down. "A courier who just drove past us while you were screaming about my registration." Harlan's face went pale. "I did not know." "Ignorance is not a shield for incompetence," Kade said, "and it certainly is not a shield for civil rights violations." A black sedan pulled up to the perimeter. The door opened, and a man in a charcoal suit stepped out. He moved with the weight of authority that made even the SWAT team straighten up. "That is the ASAC," Riley whispered to Kade. Assistant Special Agent in Charge Thorpe. He was listening to the wire. ASAC Thorpe walked straight past the SWAT team, past Beckett, and stopped in front of Harlan. Thorpe was a small man with glasses, but his eyes were like lasers. "Get him up," Thorpe ordered the agents. They hauled Harlan to his feet. Thorpe leaned in close. "Officer, in my many years with the Bureau, I have heard many things on a wire. But what I heard you say to Agent Blake today, that was special. That was a career-ending performance." He resisted, Harlan sputtered, trying to lie one more time. He refused to exit. Thorpe reached into his pocket and pulled out a digital recorder. He pressed a button. Harlan's voice. "You do not live here. You fit the description. Open this door, or I break the window." Kade's voice. "I am a federal agent. My credentials are in my inside jacket pocket." Harlan's voice. "I did not ask for a life story. Get out." Thorpe stopped the recording. He identified himself immediately. "You escalated immediately." And then Thorpe pressed the button again. Harlan's voice. "Not in my town, boy." The word hung in the air. Heavy and ugly. The neighbors were all watching now. Mrs. Kensington was still filming. The landscaping crew had moved closer. Harlan realized, with a sinking feeling in his gut, that the audio was not just on Thorpe's recorder. It was likely on Kade's body wire, his own body camera. If he had not conveniently forgotten to turn it on, which he had this time, and potentially recorded by the neighbors. "You are going to be processed," Thorpe said coldly. "But not by your department. We are taking custody of you under federal statute." "You cannot arrest a cop for doing his job," Harlan screamed, struggling against the flex cuffs. "I have qualified immunity." Kade stepped forward. Qualified immunity protects officials who make reasonable mistakes in the line of duty. It does not protect those who knowingly violate constitutional rights. You saw the badge. You called it fake without verification. That is malice, Derek. That pierces the veil of immunity. "Officer Beckett," Thorpe called out. Beckett jumped. "Yes, sir." "You suggested running the badge," Thorpe said. "We heard that on the wire. You tried to de-escalate." "I tried." "He would not listen," Beckett stammered. "That fact is the only reason you are not in cuffs right now," Thorpe said. "But you are going to write a statement, a very long, very detailed statement, and if you leave out a single comma, you will go down with him. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir." Harlan looked at his partner. "Riley, do not tell them anything. Union rep. Call the union rep." Beckett looked at Harlan. She looked at the FBI agents. She looked at Kade, the man she had almost watched get beaten. "Shut up, Derek," she said quietly. The processing of the scene took some time. The street was cordoned off with yellow tape that read, "Federal Crime Scene," which confused the local residents who were used to seeing the blue and white tape of the Oak Creek PD. Harlan had been placed in the back of one of the Suburbans, isolated, air conditioning off. He was sweating, stewing, and waiting. Outside, the dynamic was shifting from tactical to legal. Kade stood by the hood of his Tahoe, drinking a bottle of water Riley had given him. His shoulder throbbed, and he knew he would have a massive bruise tomorrow, but the adrenaline kept the pain distant. "So," Riley said, leaning against the fender. "The courier is gone," Kade said, shaking his head. "Saw the lights. Saw the cruiser. Probably turned around some blocks back. Slade will not get the money today. He will get spooked. He might start shredding documents." "We can get a warrant for Slade's place based on the wiretap we already have," Riley suggested. It is messy, but we might salvage it. Maybe, Kade said. He looked at the police cruiser still parked crookedly in the street. But right now, I'm more interested in what we found in Harlan's car. You mean besides your gun? I mean the laptop, Kade said. When he was running my plates, I saw something on his screen. It was not the standard NCIC database. Riley frowned. What was it? It looked like a private messaging board, something encrypted. He did not close it when he jumped out. Riley flagged down a tech agent. Get the data off the cruiser's laptop. Clone it now. While the tech team went to work, a new vehicle arrived. It was a standard Oak Creek police chief's car. Chief Raymond Holt was a man in his later years trying desperately to hold on to a job that was rapidly becoming too complex for him. He walked under the yellow tape, looking like he was walking to his own execution. He approached ASAC Thorpe and Kade. Agent Thorpe, Holt said, extending a hand that Thorpe ignored. I got the call. I cannot believe this. Believe it, Chief, Thorpe said. Your officer assaulted an agent. I'm sure it was a misunderstanding, Holt tried, wiping his brow with a handkerchief. Derek Harlan is a veteran. He's old school, maybe a bit rough, but he gets results. Old school? Kade spoke up. He stepped out from behind Thorpe. Chief Holt looked at Kade. He saw the dust on the suit, the red marks on the wrists. This is Agent Blake, Thorpe introduced. Chief, Kade said, your old school officer profiled me, assaulted me, and illegally detained me. But here is the part that is going to interest you. Kade pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket, a printout the tech agent had just handed him. We just pulled the logs from Harlan's onboard computer, Kade said. You know how you guys are supposed to run plates through the state database? Of course. Harlan did not run my plate through the state database, Kade said. He ran it through a private Discord server. Holt blinked. A what? A chat room, Kade explained. A private group called the Blue Wall. He posted my plate number and a photo of me sitting in the car. He asked the group, got a bogey at 4002 Sycamore. Black guy in a nice car, messing with the neighborhood. Green light to harass. Holt's mouth opened, but no sound came out. And Kade continued, his voice hardening. Someone replied, a user named Watchman. The reply was, light him up, make him run. Kade stepped closer to the chief. This was not just a bad stop, Chief. This was coordinated gang activity operating inside your department. Harlan was not checking for warrants. He was checking with his friends if he could have some fun. The implications were nuclear. It meant Harlan was not a lone wolf. It meant there was a cell of officers in Oak Creek and maybe other departments sharing targets, encouraging harassment, and bypassing legal protocols. This is impossible, Holt whispered. It is about to be national news, Thorpe said. We are seizing all servers at your precinct. We are seizing all personal devices of officers on that shift. And we are opening a pattern or practice investigation into the Oak Creek Police Department immediately. Holt looked at Harlan, who was watching from the window of the Suburban. The chief's face went from shock to fury. He realized his department was about to be gutted because one man could not suppress his ego for a few moments. Can I speak to him? Holt asked. No, Thorpe said. He is a federal prisoner. You can speak to his lawyer if he can find one. At that moment, a sleek silver Mercedes pulled up to the perimeter. A man in a sharp navy suit got out. He carried a leather briefcase and walked with the confident stride of a man who charged a high hourly rate. That, Kade said, checking his watch, would be the lawyer. It was Preston Sterling. The Preston Sterling. He was a defense attorney known for taking high-profile cases involving police misconduct, usually defending the cops. He was the go-to fixer for the Fraternal Order of Police. Sterling ducked under the tape, flashing a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Gentlemen, quite a party. I represent Officer Harlan. I demand to see my client immediately." Thorpe blocked his path. "Mr. Sterling, you are fast." "I have a retainer with the union," Sterling said smoothly. "Now, I understand there was friction between agencies. Let us not blow this out of proportion. My client made a judgment call. We can discuss an apology, perhaps a dropped charge." Kade laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Mr. Sterling," Kade said, "your client is currently detained under Title 18, United States Code, Section 242 and Section 111 for assault on a federal officer, and we are currently drafting charges for conspiracy to violate civil rights based on digital evidence we just seized." Sterling paused. He looked at Kade, then at the tech agents cloning the laptop. The smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "Conspiracy?" Sterling asked, his voice losing its lilt. "That is a reach, Agent." "Is it?" Kade held up the printout of the chat log. He solicited instructions on whether to harass a citizen based on race from a private network. That is conspiracy, and since I'm a federal agent, that makes it a conspiracy to impede a federal investigation. Sterling snatched the paper. He read it. His eyes narrowed. He was a shark, and he had just realized there was blood in the water, but it was his client's blood. "I need 5 minutes with him," Sterling said, his tone serious now. "You can have 2, Thorpe said, "with an agent present." "Attorney-client privilege," Sterling snapped. "Not when the device used to commit the crime is still in the car he is sitting in," Thorpe countered. "We are securing the scene. You can shout at him through the window." Sterling walked over to the Suburban. Harlan saw him and started pounding on the glass. "Get me out of here, Sterling. They broke my wrist. They kidnapped me." Sterling gestured for the agent to roll the window down 3 inches. "Derek," Sterling said, his voice low and hard. "Shut up." "What? You are supposed to help me." "I cannot help you if you keep talking," Sterling hissed. "They have the chat logs, Derek. They have the blue wall chats." Harlan stopped pounding. The color drained from his face so fast he looked like a corpse. "They looked at the laptop?" "Yes," Sterling said. "And because of that, this is not a traffic stop anymore. It is a RICO case against you." Harlan slumped back against the seat. "But Watchman told me to." Sterling closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose. "Did you just identify a co-conspirator while a federal agent is standing 2 feet away holding a recorder?" The agent standing guard smiled pleasantly. "I am done," Sterling said, stepping back. "I need to make some calls. I need to see if the union will even cover this. Intentional criminal conspiracy usually voids your coverage, Derek." "You cannot leave me!" Harlan screamed as Sterling walked away. Kade watched the lawyer retreat. He turned to Riley. "You know what the worst part is?" "What?" "If he had just checked the badge," Kade said, "I would have let him go with a warning. He would be home eating dinner in an hour. Now he is going to prison for some time." "Calamity," Riley said, spitting on the ground. "We are not done yet," Kade said, looking down the street at Councilman Slade's house. The lights in the councilman's house had just turned off. "The big fish is trying to run. Harlan was just the appetizer." Kade tapped his earpiece. "Tactical. This is Blake. We are pivoting. The primary target, Slade, is likely destroying evidence. We have probable cause based on the exigent circumstances created by the compromised surveillance. We are moving on the house now. Copy that? The radio crackled. Kade looked at Harlan one last time. Sit tight, officer. The show is just starting. The transition from a standoff on the street to a full-scale federal raid happened with the terrifying precision of a thunderclap. For Derek Harlan, sitting handcuffed in the back of the FBI Suburban, the world had turned into a surreal nightmare. He watched through the tinted glass as the tactical team reformed. They were not looking at him anymore. They were looking at the house at 408 Sycamore Drive, the home of Councilman Victor Slade. Harlan had waved at Slade just some time earlier. He had told the neighborhood watch meetings that Slade was a pillar of the community. He had spent years patrolling the street, effectively acting as Slade's unpaid private security guard, chasing off suspicious cars to keep the councilman happy. Now he watched as Special Agent Kade Blake, the man Harlan had tried to humiliate, donned a heavy ballistic vest with FBI in bold yellow letters. Blake moved with a fluidity that Harlan, with his stiff back and bad knees, had never possessed. Breaching tools up, Kade commanded, his voice clear over the radio frequency that Harlan could faintly hear from the front seat of the Suburban. Slade is spooked. If he destroys the ledger, we lose the cartel connection. We go hard, we go fast. The team moved up the driveway. Harlan felt a sick feeling in his stomach. Cartel connection? Slade was just a zoning guy. He approved strip malls. What was the FBI talking about? Stack up, Kade ordered. 6 agents lined up against the pristine white siding of Slade's colonial mansion. Riley was on the ram. FBI search warrant, Kade bellowed. His voice was a weapon, projecting deep and loud, shaking the windows. Open the door. Silence. Hit it! Crack. The sound of the battering ram splintering the solid oak door was sickeningly loud. It took one swing. The door flew inward. Go, go, go! Harlan watched the agents flood into the house. He saw the flash of tactical lights sweeping the foyer. He heard shouting, muffled by the walls, but unmistakable in its intensity. Inside the house, chaos reigned. Kade moved through the hallway, his weapon raised. Federal agents, show me your hands. A maid screamed and dropped to the floor in the kitchen. Secure her. Keep moving. Kade signaled to the rear of the house toward the study. That was where the shredder would be. They reached the double doors of the study. They were locked. Quentin, take it. Riley did not use the ram this time. He used a mule kick, snapping the latch. The doors swung open. Councilman Slade was standing by the fireplace. He was not shredding documents. He was burning them. A metal wastebasket was in flames, smoke curling up toward the high ceiling. Slade, a man usually seen in tailored suits, was in his bathrobe, frantically feeding thick ledgers into the fire. FBI, step away from the fire, Kade shouted. Slade looked up, his eyes wild. You cannot come in here. I have immunity. I am an elected official. You are under arrest for money laundering and racketeering. Kade rushed forward. Slade tried to throw a black hard drive into the flames. Kade lunged. He did not tackle the man. He tackled the evidence. Cade's gloved hand snatched the hard drive out of the air inches from the fire. He felt the heat sear his wrist, but he held on. Riley hit Slade with a tackle that would have made an NFL highlight reel. The councilman hit the expensive Persian rug with a thud. The wind knocked out of him. Hands behind your back. Stop resisting. I'm not resisting, Slade wheezed, his face pressed into the wool. You tried to destroy evidence in front of federal agents, Riley growled, cuffing him. That is obstruction. Add some time to the sentence. Kade stood up, clutching the hard drive. He looked at the burning bin. He grabbed a heavy vase of flowers from the desk and dumped the water into the bin. The fire hissed and died, leaving half-burnt papers, soggy but legible. Secure the scene, Kade breathed, his heart hammering. Get the fire department to check the chimney for updrafts of loose paper. I want every scrap of ash bagged. 10 minutes later, the front door opened again. Derek Harlan, still watching from the car, saw the impossible. Councilman Victor Slade, the man who controlled the police budget, the man Harlan had idolized as the definition of success, was dragged out in handcuffs. He was weeping. He looked small, pathetic, and guilty. Slade saw the police cruiser in the street. He saw Harlan in the back of the FBI truck. "Harlan!" Slade screamed, his voice cracking. "You idiot! You brought them here. You led them right to me." Harlan flinched, as if slapped. Kade walked out behind the prisoner, holding the evidence bag containing the hard drive. He walked over to the Suburban where Harlan was being held. He signaled the agent to open the door. The rush of cool air hit Harlan's sweaty face. "You see that, Derek?" Kade asked, pointing at the weeping councilman. Harlan nodded dumbly. "That man has been laundering money for the Sinaloa cartel for some time," Kade said. "He has been poisoning the city with fentanyl money, washing it through construction projects. We spent a long time building this case. We were waiting for the money drop to catch him red-handed." Kade leaned in, his eyes cold. "But because you wanted to play tough guy with a black man in a nice car, the courier got spooked. We missed the money. We almost lost the hard drive. You did not protect this neighborhood, Derek. You protected a monster, and you almost let him get away." Harlan looked down at his hands bound in plastic. The narrative in his head that he was the thin blue line, the protector, was shattering. He was not the hero. He was the clown who tripped the alarm. "I did not know," Harlan whispered. "That," Kade said, slamming the door, "is going to be on your tombstone." The interrogation room at the FBI Chicago field office was a study in sensory deprivation. The walls were gray soundproofing foam. The table was bolted to the floor. The air was frigid, kept intentionally cold to keep suspects uncomfortable and awake. Derek Harlan had been sitting there for some time. His handcuffs had been replaced with steel ones, chained to the ring on the table. He was thirsty. He needed to use the bathroom, but mostly he was terrified. The door opened. He expected his lawyer, Preston Sterling. Instead, Agent Kade Blake walked in, followed by ASAC Thorpe. No lawyer. "Where is Sterling?" Harlan demanded, his voice raspy. "I invoked my right to counsel." Kade sat down, placing a thick file on the metal table. "Mr. Sterling is currently busy." "Busy doing what? He is my lawyer." "Actually," Thorpe said, remaining standing, "Mr. Sterling represents the Fraternal Order of Police. He represents the union, and as of some time ago, the union has voted to revoke your membership and legal protection." Harlan felt the blood drain from his face. "What? They cannot do that." "They can," Kade said. "There is a clause in your contract regarding conduct unbecoming and criminal malfeasance. When the news broke that you were running a racial profiling ring on a private server, well, the union decided you were too radioactive to touch. They cut you loose, Derek. You are on your own." Harlan slumped. The system he had served, the blue wall he thought would always shield him, had just dropped him off a cliff to save itself. I want a public defender, Harlan whispered. You will get one, Kade said. But first, we are going to listen to a story. Your story. Kade opened the file. He pulled out photos, not of Harlan, but of the chat logs from the laptop. We cracked the encryption on the Blue Wall Discord server, Kade said. It is ugly, Derek. Really ugly. Jokes about beating suspects, competitions on who can write the most bogus tickets. But the worst part is the hierarchy. Kade tapped a photo of a user profile named Watchman. This guy, Kade said. Watchman. He is the ringleader. He tells you who to target. He gave you the order to light me up today. Who is he? Harlan shook his head. I cannot tell you. Why not? Thorpe asked. Loyalty to the people who just fired your lawyer, to the people who are letting you take the fall for a federal civil rights violation? You do not understand, Harlan said, his eyes tearing up. If I talk, I am a rat. I am dead in prison. A cop in general population is bad. A snitch cop, I will not last a week. Kade leaned forward. His voice was not angry anymore. It was dangerously soft. Derek, look at the math. You are facing some time for the deprivation of rights. Another stretch for the gun enhancement. Another stretch for conspiracy. You are looking at a long sentence. You will be an older man when you get out. You will die in prison anyway. Kade slid a piece of paper across the table. This is a proffer agreement, Kade said. You talk. You tell us who Watchman is. You tell us every officer involved in this ring. In exchange, we recommend a reduced sentence in a minimum security federal camp. We put you in protective custody. You survive. Harlan stared at the paper. It was a lifeline, but it required him to betray the only identity he had left. I need to know I am safe, Harlan stammered. You are only safe if you give us the head of the snake, Kade said. Who is Watchman? Harlan closed his eyes. He thought about the barbecue at the precinct some time earlier. He thought about the man who had clapped him on the back and told him to keep the streets clean, the man who had given him the login to the server. It is... Harlan's voice cracked. Sergeant Holt. Kade paused. The chief's brother, the shift sergeant. Yes, Harlan wept. And the chief knows. Chief Holt is overlord in the chat. They run it together. They use the tickets and the arrests to juice the stats to get federal grants. It is all a game. The silence in the room was heavy. This was bigger than a few bad apples. The entire orchard was rotten. Thorpe, Kade said, not taking his eyes off Harlan. Get the warrant for the chief. Kade looked back at Harlan. You did the right thing, Derek. Finally. Does this mean I can go home? Harlan asked, a pathetic hope in his eyes. Kade stood up and gathered the files. He looked at the man who had tried to ruin him. He felt a moment of pity, but it was fleeting. No, Derek, Kade said. It means you do not die in prison, but you are never going home. Not to the life you had. Kade knocked on the door. Guard, take him to booking. Sometime later, the federal courthouse in downtown Chicago was besieged by media vans. The headline on the scrolling ticker of the CNN van read, Oak Creek Police Scandal, Sentencing Day. Special Agent Kade Blake stood on the steps, adjusting his tie. The wind off the lake was cold, but the sun was bright. Beside him stood Agent Riley and ASAC Thorpe. Inside the courtroom, the final act of the drama had just played out. Derek Harlan stood before the judge. He looked much older. His mustache was gone, shaved off in county lockup. His suit was ill-fitting. He had lost weight from stress. The courtroom was packed. In the front row sat his ex-wife. She was not there to support him. She was there with her divorce attorney to ensure the lien on his pension was finalized. She would not look at him. Judge Lydia Voss, a stern woman with zero tolerance for corruption, adjusted her glasses. "Mr. Harlan," she said, "you have cooperated with the government. Your testimony was instrumental in the indictment of former Chief Holt and Sergeant Holt, both of whom are now facing significant prison time. The court acknowledges this." Harlan nodded, hope rising in his chest. Maybe probation, maybe house arrest. "However," the judge continued, her voice hardening like concrete, "you were the spearhead of a culture of terror. You used your badge as a cudgel. You targeted Agent Blake not because of what he did, but because of who he was. You betrayed the public trust in the most visceral way possible." The judge looked at Kade sitting in the prosecution box. "Agent Blake, do you have a victim impact statement?" Kade stood up. He walked to the podium. He did not have notes. "Your Honor," Kade said, "I'm a trained federal agent. When Mr. Harlan assaulted me, I knew how to de-escalate. I knew the law. I had a team listening." Kade paused, looking directly at Harlan. "But I keep thinking about the man who sat in that car before me. The teenager driving home from school, the father going to the grocery store. They did not have a wire. They did not have a backup team. When they met Officer Harlan, they had no voice. Today, the system worked, because I am part of the system. But justice should not require a badge to work. Officer Harlan did not just break the law. He broke the promise that keeps this society from falling into chaos. He needs to serve as an example that the badge is a heavy weight, not a free pass." Kade sat down. The judge nodded. "Derek Harlan, I sentence you to some time in federal prison, followed by years of supervised release. You are stripped of your pension. You are permanently barred from holding any position in law enforcement or security. Remand is immediate." The gavel banged. It sounded like a gunshot. "No!" Harlan cried out as the marshals moved in. "Please, I helped you. I helped you." The marshals did not care. They spun him around, cuffing his hands behind his back. The same sound, click, click, that he had inflicted on Kade. As they walked him out of the side door, Harlan looked back. He locked eyes with Kade one last time. There was no anger in Kade's eyes, just a blank, professional indifference. Harlan realized with a crushing finality that he was not a villain in Kade's story anymore. He was just paperwork. Outside the courthouse, Kade walked down the steps. The reporters swarmed. "Agent Blake, Agent Blake, how do you feel about the verdict? Is the FBI investigating other departments?" Kade stopped at the microphones. He looked into the cameras. "Justice was served today," Kade said. "But let us be clear. This was not a victory. A police department was dismantled. A city councilman is in jail. A family was destroyed. This was a tragedy that could have been avoided with a few moments of respect. That is the lesson. Respect the law. Respect the people, or eventually the law will come for you." He stepped back. Riley clapped him on the shoulder. "Beer." "Yes," Kade smiled. "But you are buying. I am technically still on duty until I file this final report." "Deal." They walked away, two men in suits disappearing into the city crowd. Behind them, the news screens flashed the mugshot of Derek Harlan, a man who had everything and lost it all in those moments because he could not let go of his ego. The karma had not just hit, it had cleared the board. And that is how some moments of arrogance destroyed a lifetime of service. Derek Harlan thought he was the predator, but he failed to realize he was swimming in an ocean with much bigger sharks. He lost his job, his freedom, and his legacy, all because he judged a book by its cover and did not bother to read the badge inside. It is a brutal reminder. In the age of cameras and accountability, the truth always has a way of coming out. Harlan's blue wall of silence did not protect him. It collapsed on top of him. What do you think? Did Harlan deserve the sentence? Or should the sentence have been harsher, considering he was part of a larger conspiracy? And would you have remained as calm as Agent Blake? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of instant karma and justice served, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. Subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. We post real-life inspired dramas every week. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there.